Teď pozvu sem Richarda Stirlinga, mezinárodního ředitele Open Data Institute z Velké Británie. Richard.
So I think we're running just a couple of minutes late on the timing, so I'm going to do my best to rattle through a description of the ODI and the companies that we're working with in a lot less time than that. So the ODI, we are here to, oh, clickers, no? Okay, can you, no. Fine. In which case, I'm going to be aiming for about 30 seconds per slide. This is really throwing off my trying to rattle through this challenge. So I'm already a minute in. Can you get me the? No? Is it broken on your thing as well? Great. Anyway, I'm just going to pretend that I don't have any slides. The ODI, if you think that you've heard as a repeated theme from throughout the day, that sort of data is the oil for the digital economy, open data can be a real enabler for new services, for innovation, then this kind of means that open data is kind of for everybody. At this point, you've got to imagine that on the screen on the side, there is a beautiful picture of the Olympic Park with "For Everyone" from Sir Tim Berners-Lee put up. There isn't, there's just our logo, but you know, it's there. What we're here to do is we're here to catalyze impact from open data. We're here to try and help small companies, or large ones, sort of do things that resonate with open data. So do things that make people sit up and take notice. And as a result, you know, we have an incubation arm. So we have about 12 small startup companies that we coach and mentor on working with open data. We have a private sector membership community where we bring companies, small and large, together working with open data. We're starting to work internationally, and at some point when my slides start working, which may be never, then you'll see that I'm sort of going to go through those things. So I just wanted to use this time with you to try and expand what some of those examples are. You know, because often at conferences like this, then you hear an awful lot about the big policy challenges. You hear an awful lot about presumption of open and why this is hard, and you know, can we open this? Can we not open that? And there's very little on the sort of so what question. You know, what is the real benefit from open data? Over the last year, because we've been going just over a year, we've been able to find sort of one of those examples every 3 months, largely through, you know, kind of cheating and working with some of those talented startups. So the first one I was going to talk about was the 200 million cash saving that one of our startups found in the NHS drugs budget. The NHS in England and Wales have been publishing open data under this presumption of open for about 18 months. They'd been doing all the hard work to sort of tidy it up and anonymize it suitably, comply with all the right statistical standards. But there didn't seem to be any sort of public use. And at the same time, we had a couple of very talented data scientists, one ex-Google, one ex-investment bank, going, there must be something in this. So our role in all of this was to kind of tell the world about it. You know, we gave them a little bit of seed funding. They worked on it for 8 weeks. They analyzed prescribing habits in drugs. They compared the sort of on-patent, or the branded drugs with the generics for a class of drugs that reduces heart disease. and it's sort of £20 for the branded drug, and it's about sort of, well, just under £1 for the generics. And at this point, you've got to imagine there's a picture of the United Kingdom up. Now, there's random, you look at it and you go, okay, so this is nice. You've done some analysis, you've displayed it on a map, all good data analytics so far. Then you look at the map and you go, oh, there doesn't seem to be any sort of north-south divide on the prescribing habits. There doesn't seem to be any sort of urban-rural split. There's no obvious correlations in the data, which makes you think that it must just be random noise. And if it's random noise, then does anything bad happen if you just stop prescribing the expensive ones? The answer, if you look at the sort of clinical evidence, is not. It was that slide just there. Oh, no, never mind. I'll continue ignoring it until they tell me. If you do make that switch, then you get a 200 million a year cash saving in the NHS at a time when money is tight. So that's great. This is now working again. The second example I wanted to use was around open data as an enabler for all things. You know, so we've had societal examples today. We've had government efficiency. We've had economic. Actually, the example that's up there is open data powering culture. Now, I'm very lucky. My chief executive is a very charismatic man who is both an astrophysicist and an artist. And one of the things that he saw one of the things he thought was important was for us to challenge people's preconceptions. So in the first 2 weeks in office, almost before he'd bought the furniture, and certainly before he'd hired the team, he launched an art competition for data-powered art. Data as culture. That was exhibited at TED, or it's been picked up all over the place, exhibited at TED, you know, a whole bunch of stuff on the slide about the level of interest it got there. And the reason that we did that is because open data isn't just a technical thing. Open data isn't just something that, you know, is good for the technocrats. Open data is a raw material for all elements of society. My own personal favorite on the next slide is our open data powered crisp machine. This sits in our kitchen. It doesn't accept money. It sits there filled with junk food and only dispenses when there is bad news in the economy. So to cheer everybody up whenever there's bad news in the economy, it dispenses crisps. On budget day, we do have a little informal game of bingo as to see how many packets of crisps are going to be in the bottom of the thing. So if you watch the ODI Twitter stream, our Chancellor is about to give a budget fairly shortly. On budget day, give us your suggestions. Last time, I think it was about 45 packets. UK economy is going slightly better, so maybe we're down to about 30. So not giving away my own personal vote there. But this is open data powering a cultural object in some way that's not at all technocratic. You know, the next example was then the 200 million cash saving. You know, the real tangible cash saving in a cash-strapped public service in a way where they didn't need to ask for any permission to do the work because all of the data was just sat there open under a presumption of open. Now, I'm going to skip over the next example, which is Chris's slides, because I don't want to steal his thunder. So when you get to a pretty map of the world, just power on straight on through. This example is our third example. I've long had a contention that open data enables people to make smart decisions, and open data can make the job of regulators much easier. You know, regulators normally sit there, they send out Excel spreadsheets, they say, right, tell me what's going on in your business, fill this out once a month. As a result, it's a real pain. They usually sort of sneak in 6 months late. The regulator's a bit frustrated because they can't take proper decisions. The industry's a bit frustrated because these things are just basically dead money. They never get any benefits, except in the case of agriculture in the States, where it turns out multiple years of filings, $1 billion a year or $1 billion business. So we thought, well, okay, this is interesting. How can we test this? Just around that point, the Bank of England approached us and said, there's this market, peer-to-peer lending. 10 years ago, they convinced us that this was a tiny niche industry. This was a few people lending money to each other online. Most of these people are quite well off, so there's no real harm here. We'll give them a nice light touch regulatory regime. This was an amazing thing. The British banking regulatory regime, as you all know from recent past, it doesn't actually stave off a banking crisis, but it's really effective at stopping innovation. There has been only one retail bank opened up in the UK in the last 120 years, and that's been in the last 2 years. So it was a real coup for the peer-to-peer lending industry to get this light touch thing. But having had this light touch regime, and having been a good internet business and had double-digit growth for the last 10 years, they've now got about 1% of the retail loan market. And that's at the point where the regulator's starting to look a bit suspect, because they're going, well, God, we gave these people a light touch regime. They're double-digit growth. They've now got 1% of the loan market. They're still growing at double digits. It's not going to take them that long to then get like 10% of the loan market. If this all turns out to be going horribly wrong, we won't know about it because we don't have any regulatory filings particularly. And we'll look really silly for the second time in about 5 years. So they really wanted to look at this. At the same time, the industry was going, please, dear God, don't regulate us to death. So they wanted to do something innovative. We injected open data as a possible solution. So the 4 main markets in peer-to-peer lending in the UK all opened up their data. Some of them had opened it up anyway as part of the sort of proving their bona fides for their customers. But they all opened up their data. We worked with the regulator to map out and visualize the data. So this is now it's on our lab site. And it shows you how almost every loan and transaction in the peer-to-peer lending market in the UK goes. It does this from point-level data. It is suitably anonymized for the statisticians in the room. There are some tiny islands off the northwest coast of Scotland that have 6 people. I am reliably informed that one of those 6 people has a loan on this exchange, but you can't see it on the diagram because it just got pulled back into the mainland. The really exciting thing for the regulator is that this data could be almost real time. The exchanges, because they're internet businesses, the data's just generated every sort of 10, 15 seconds. You could have this on the map, on the wall, on a screen in the Bank of England. So if anything starts going wrong in the market, you're the first one to know. And you've managed to do that in a way which hasn't increased the compliance burden for an industry. Now this, for a regulator, is a massively transformational thing. It makes you much more effective at your core job, keeps the industry effective and able to just run their business, and enables you to take smart decisions at the right time. Now, at the ODI, I said earlier that we were trying to convene a community. And that's because what we really want to do is we want to take all the people who care about this sort of stuff and give them a space to talk to one another. So we've got a huge number of companies, everything from the enormous multinationals that you've never heard of, like Quanta, through to tiny visualization companies like Kiln, where it's a sort of journalist and a mathematician who are amazing, absolutely amazing at being able to tell stories with data and just drilling into the substance and doing it in a way which everybody can understand and follow. And we're trying to bring these people together. But we also, have, I said we've been going for about 12 months. In those 12 months, we've come to the realization that actually this is a global community. It's not just constrained to any one geography. There is nothing once you've got the open data, it's kind of data without borders. You know, you were hearing earlier from Ladislav that he's got a business in the Czech Republic taking data from San Francisco and kind of selling it back to them as insight. That's amazing. That's exactly the sort of behavior that we would expect open data companies to be doing. You know, you're kind of global from day one. If you can't find the data locally, go to a jurisdiction where it's available. You know, sell your services there. So what we're trying to do now is we're trying to build a global community around these people who are looking at finding impact from open data. We're trying to build a global community to introduce companies from around the world to each other to understand the challenges, but also to just promote trade between them. And that's everything from our startup program to our training to the sort of the corporate networking that I was talking about. And the final thing that we're trying to do is we're trying to reduce the barriers to exchange. So one of the things that has been a sort of recurring theme has been around data quality and provenance and engagement. What we've looked to do is we've looked to try and find a way of capturing the things that matter around data provision and putting them into a system that scores it. So these are our open data certificates. The way that you get them is kind of through a series of questions that guide you through the sort of the data publication process. And it asks you questions like, if you publish the data, are you going to publish it again? Great. Is that going to be next week? Is that going to be in 6 months? Is that on an annual refresh? Once you published it, is that it kind of done from your life? Or once you publish it, are you going to engage with the community that are using it? Is this something that's really important to your day-to-day business? And the answers will be different for different data sets, and that's all right. You know, some data's really, really important, like geography and you know, all the sort of core national infrastructure stuff. Some stuff, it's just kind of, you know, it could be interesting, it might not be, but it's, you know, under the presumption of open, you want to publish it. And it should be really easy for people who are using the data to be able to tell the difference between the two. So that's what we've tried to do here. And that's directly addressing one of the things that kind of went a bit wrong around some of the early Data.gov UK stuff, where some data sets were published, people built businesses, and then they were only refreshed 2 years later, at which point the business had already folded. So that's kind of what we're looking at. The other thing that we're trying to do is we're trying to establish some sort of benchmarks and some understanding around relative progress. So this is now tiny on a small projector on the side, so nobody will be able to see it. But if you do a search for Open Data Barometer visualization, then you can drill in and you can see, thank you. I put a slide up for the Czech Republic last night, and you can see that actually you've started to, you've got an awful lot of talent and in the businesses and society. You haven't got much data coming out yet, although there are some pockets, you're starting to see some of the impacts coming through. What we want to do is we want to expand on all of these axes. But also enable people to see how they're doing. Because this is, in some of those policy debates that we were having earlier, this is fantastic, because this is the thing that as a public official, and I was one until about 12 months ago, this enables you to see how you're doing against your peers. It enables you to go, right, I'm 22 out of 77. Who's 21st? Why? And how can I get there? And also be able to see some of the things that might drive progress in this area. So that's what we're trying to do with the standards, make it much easier for people to do business, and also make it much easier for governments to reflect on their progress. So thank you very much. I promised that I would run early. I have by 60 seconds, despite the slide stuff, and I'm sorry about that. I'm sure that was a mistake on my part somehow. So thank you very much.